No Safe Haven is the fourth full-length album from Aposento, a Logroño, Spain-based band who have been around since the early 90s as far as I remember. Their best-known release is probably their 1997 EP. That was their official release. They did put out some pretty good demo tapes in the earlier 90s where they moved from thrashing, just classic early or late 80s, early 90s old school death metal towards something that was more brutal over time. It was a kind of a natural evolution of death metal at that time, and they had their own atmosphere to it, like a lot of kind of the lower budget Spanish releases of a certain era, where a lot of bands went groove metal, but this band went brutal, and they kind of called it quits soon after that. They reformed around 2012 or so and put out three full lengths since then, and for me, they weren't all that interesting to start. They were decidedly brutal for a band in 2014, bringing back their sound, and they had it all kind of pretty well put together, but it wasn't until their third record where I felt like it all kind of came together, and they've continued to improve beyond that point. Now, all these records have been a little bit different because different people have played on them, and that's also the case for this one. So there's different members who are contributing to the rhythm section on this record. I think the most common references for this band are like Sinister, Deicide, and Vomitory, although there's other things we could throw in there to add nuance to it. But before we do, let's just get to a clip and hear what this record sounds like, and then elaborate upon that. While Aposento don't write catchy songs necessarily, they never really have. They've always written great riffs, and early Deicide has always been kind of that hinge point for them in terms of the way they deliver those riffs. And by returning to one of their earlier vocalists, who was always kind of in that style, a little bit of a Glenn Benton-esque register, they bring back the classic sound of the band on this latest record. And if you're a fan of like Hate era Sinister, or just bands like Alter, who were obviously also influenced by those similar bands, you'll understand why this record just instantly appealed to me, because it not only does it shotgun riffs in a certain way that has a certain kind of easy to follow along cadence to it, but it's got a very classic sound, and they rip through all these songs in about half an hour, and it works for me in terms of brutal death metal that is also old school and not so over the top that it loses any tuneful value, or you don't really miss the way the riffs kind of hit. So this has a very simple appeal to me. It's just a very classic death metal sound. It's a little bit referential, and you'll hear some very familiar vocal cadence throughout the record that just comes from a very classic place in terms of its influence, but there's really no deeper thought here. It's a pure death metal record. It's got an old school touch to it, and it should be effective for anyone who just loves that kind of thing. And there's not anything all that deep to say about it beyond that point. So No Safe Haven for me is very much a moderately high recommendation, and that's to the general public. I think if you're just a fan of classic death metal with a bit of a brutal touch, it's got that extra impact that's missing in a lot of death metal today. This is it might be a surprising record for you if you're a fan of that kind of thing. For the average person, maybe it doesn't have anything particularly original or new that you haven't heard before. For me, I can usually not get enough of this stuff, and I think that the way that they put this record together, it never gets old. They just kind of tear through what they're doing, and they do it well. I also love the album art. I think it's just kind of a cool, macabre thing, and I think it really suits Aposento and their style. So it was just, altogether, it was a great package. If for me, there's a difference between a personal rating and what I love and what I'd recommend to others. And for me, a review is a recommendation, like I've said before. And so this one is moderate because it's going to appeal to a very specific niche and only them. So check it out yourself, see if that is your thing. This released back early in the month on July 2nd, and read my review for more of my thoughts.